I read an article by the Heritage Foundation and you can find it at www.heritage.org, which gave each state a score on their election scorecard. The state voter laws were analyzed and given a grade based on how well they protect the integrity and security of the election process. I was surprised to see South Dakota received a 62 out of 100 for a failing grade. Among the reasons for the failing grade were, voter ID implementation, accuracy of voter lists, vote harvesting restrictions, verification of citizenship, election litigation procedures, and restricting of private funds of election officials or government agencies, which we know Lincoln County took money from, or Zuckerbucks, that's what we call it. So, in our search for South Dakota voter integrity, we have uncovered the following potential problems with the election systems. Drop boxes is number one. Drop boxes have been proven to be a mechanism for voter fraud and ballot harvesting. These boxes are not secure and do not need to be placed outside the courthouse for any reason. Is it against the law to have drop boxes? SDCL 1219-7 addresses returning absentee ballots. It states the voter shall either mail the ballot, deliver the ballot in person, or have it delivered to the person in charge of the election. I am here today to ask you, the commissioners, to please remove the Lincoln County drop boxes immediately. 2 is voter registration database. A key problem in South Dakota is verifying that the person registered to vote is actually a South Dakota resident. If they don't have to produce a South Dakota driver's license or a proof of current address, who is verifying residency? We have discovered voters on the rolls that are potentially over 140 years old. Is the auditor's office keeping up with death records? 3 is electronic equipment. Anything electronic can be connected to the internet. Anything connected to the internet can be hacked. Lincoln County has electronic tabulating machines. These ES&S tabulating machines have been proven in other states to be unknowingly connected to the internet and easily manipulated, even if they ordered ones that were not supposed to be connected to the internet. Has anyone on this commission or in the auditor's office verified by physical inspection that our machines are indeed not connected to the internet? Our group would like to see these tabulating machines removed, hand count only, with poll watchers from all parties closely observing the count. Poll books. Electronic poll books are the key to stealing and manipulating votes. Electronic poll books have little to no security, have proven to slow down check-in process on election days, and diminish local oversight. Our group advocates for paper poll books only and human verification. Excuse me. Our group promotes paper ballots only, voting in person on election day, limited absentee ballots, and no electronic machines, period. Lastly, we do care and are concerned with the allocation of funds towards elections expenses. Excuse me. We believe election funds should be carefully considered when distributed. We believe the constituents should know how the funds are going to be allocated so there is room for public input. The biggest concern of mine personally is the power of the auditor to enact change and expenditures for voting processes without having the public have any knowledge or input into these changes. We propose open communication between the auditor's office, the county commission, with the residents of Lincoln County. Let's work together to protect and preserve free and fair elections for South Dakota for generations to come. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Does anybody else from the public? Excuse me. Does anybody else from the public wish to speak today? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to commissioner reports. Do any commissioners have informational presentations to make to the commission or the public at this time? Okay, hearing none. Does anybody hear that noise? If you're on the phone, would you please mute your phone, please? Thank you. Sounded like a clock ticking.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can move on with the business of the people. Okay, regular business. Our first agenda item is a presentation by our guest, Dick Strasberg from Tegra Group regarding project management. Mr. Strasberg, welcome to the commission meeting today, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Dick Strasberg with the Tegra Group, a real estate consulting firm, and I've got a presentation here that I'll spin through to kind of guide us through the process. I can find what we got here, so. All right. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm Dick Strasberg, and I'm co-founder of the Tegra Group. If I can tell just a little background on myself, and then I can talk about some of the services that we offer. So first, I was born and raised in South Dakota. I was born in Brookings, raised on a farm just between the Toronto and the Brant exit. I graduated from Clear Lake, and then went on to North Dakota State. SDSU didn't have architecture a lot of years ago, and so I went to North Dakota State, got a degree in architecture. And when I got out of college, I was raised on a farm, and we didn't take a lot of family vacations. I wanted to see the ocean. I'd seen the mountains once, wanted to get out and see the world, so I moved to Colorado. And when I got out there, I got registered as an architect. And then one of our clients was a real estate developer, and they offered me a job, and it was in Los Angeles. I thought, okay, this is great, time get out and see the world. And plus, I looked at it at that time. I looked at South Dakota. It's like, who would ever live here? It's so cold, and the wind blows, and all this. And then I got to Los Angeles, and I kind of figured out South Dakota looked really pretty good. And so then something when I was in Los Angeles that I saw as a developer, I saw tenants come along that were the big tenants, the big national, we did a lot of big military kind of work and big corporate work. And we saw that those groups, they had in-house architects, they had in-house contractors, they had people with those backgrounds. They had lawyers, they had people, they were all ready to go. Then we'd work with other ones that were smaller. They didn't have a clue. They didn't know. They didn't have all that. They weren't equipped with all those people to surround them. And that's where I came up with the idea of Tegra. Let's create a group just like that. Let's get it so we've got people with backgrounds in interior design, backgrounds in construction and architecture, and accounting and law. And let's have a group that does that for the small and mid-sized organizations, both public and private, that don't have those services. So started Tegra in 1996, and we're just owner's reps. That's all we do. We aren't contractors. We only represent end users. We don't provide any of the services. Now, we happen to have backgrounds in these different professions, but we've learned that those backgrounds are really helpful. We have a requirement: anybody in our office has at least 10 years practicing in either in one of those areas before they come to Tegra. We have that as a rule, but I think in reality it's more like 15. We have 8 professionals. We started with 6. I could kind of run through it, and you get a pretty good idea about our company just by the backgrounds. I mentioned my background. Nate Pearson has a construction management degree from Iowa and an MBA. He was on the executive leadership of Mortensen Construction. He came with 17 years of experience, and the project he's worked on here, one of the reasons I can stand here and be kind of interested in this job is because we just finished the monument out in Rapid City, and he led that project. He also did locally here. He did the Midco Aquatic Center. He did Washington Square across from Washington Pavilion, and has been involved in some others as well. We've got Naomi Burchett. She's an architect, and she was kind of my right-hand person. We did Danny Sanford Premier Center. And we got Paul Kerber. He's been with us for almost since we started. And he has a banking background. He's got an MBA in real estate finance. And he's our numbers guy and real estate guy, and has a real strong background there. And something I should mention too, we work as a team. So if we're hiring, a contractor, we have the guys that have construction backgrounds, write the RFPs, analyze the RFPs, be at the interviews, and really actively manage them. And if it's like on the construction or the real estate, the finance, the front end side of it, we've got Paul Kerber, he's involved with that. So we work as a team. We each take our own specialties. But we have one person who's the lead that, kind of covers the whole, is responsible for bringing other people in on it. And on your project, that would be me. We've got Julie. She's a civil engineer by background, and worked for a contractor for 15 years before she came to Tegra. But Mark is a CPA. Connie is, she does everything that, I think at one of your meetings, someone mentioned that, if you tip a building upside down and everything that falls out, in our case, it falls on her plate. She does everything that's FF&E and everything that's all the details on it. She's been involved in, I think, pretty much everything we've done in South Dakota. She's finishing up the monument, did all the FF&E out there. And then we got Mike Van Cly, who's a newer team member. He was the project manager on the Minnehaha County Jail. And he was a real sharp guy. He's got a construction management degree, MBA. And I think it's fair to say anyone that we have on our team, we've probably worked with them first, because we can kind of pick the cream of the crop when we're working with these different projects. One thing we've got in common, which we didn't do this on purpose, but we're all from small towns or farms with one exception. We got one Green Bay Packer guy that's from Milwaukee. Everybody else is from small towns. Mike Van Cline, for example, he was Laverne. Connie was Mitchell. Okay, so then in terms of what does an owner's rep do, and what benefits do we have? We're basically an extension of your team. We're an extension of your staff during the time of the project, and that's how we set up the project, the group. Where that's what we do. We are that. We're an extension of your staff. We work like that, and we work for typically the commission. And oftentimes there's a couple of people that are appointed on to focus on the project. And then oftentimes the auditor gets involved too. Between the auditor and the attorney, we work pretty closely with both of them as well. We've got these backgrounds in education, and what we've learned from that is that when we're managing architects, we're managing contractors, and managing this process, and even on the front end, with some of the CPA or that kind of background, we've got pretty good credibility with those people because we've been in their roles. So we know how to manage them because we were on the other side of the table before we stepped into this role. Same with on the development side. When we're analyzing development, a proposal, well, I was on that side. I did that for quite a few years, so we understand that. We work with developers on private sector projects routinely. Then what we do is we kind of come in and level the playing field. As I mentioned, when I was working out in Los Angeles, I saw these groups who had come in that, and you get to be friends with the people you're working with. And here we are. I'm working for the developer. My responsibility is to the investors that owned our company. And what I realized is, example on that was a mechanical system. Well, we put in the lowest cost system up front. Now, it had the highest operating cost, but that wasn't our concern. That's the tenant's concern. And I just thought someone should be representing the end user, because we saw it with the big companies. They came in and they had mechanical engineers, they had people that knew that kind of thing. So then it was leveled. But when we got to the smaller and mid-sized organizations, it wasn't. That's kind of what, it bugged me, because here I am, I'm trying to be an honest man, and here I am. It's like, it just really is this conflict. And it's not that the developer are bad guys. They're doing it to make money, and that's what they do. And they take big risks. They take real big risks. But if you're gonna have a lower end mechanical system, for example, you should know it. You should know it and kind of know the pros and cons on it. So then what it results in, we can do what we call experience-based recommendations. It's just we may not be the smartest people on the planet, but after you've done anything 100 times, you kind of start to figure it out. So that's kind of how we work. We've got, we don't design the buildings. We aren't experts at on, in this case, in the local examples on building an arena or the aquatic center or a jail. We aren't expert on those things. Now we've done all those, and but it's really we hire the teams that know how to do them, but we manage the process. So really, in our case, you're really hiring someone like us to manage the process. And we just represent your interests. We're always, if there's, we don't do work for contractors, architects, subcontractors. We just represent your interests. We don't, on land, we are licensed real estate brokers, but we only represent the one side. We don't list any property. We're always on the buy side or on the, on the tenant side if it's a lease transaction. And so I think what the benefit is we've got a project number system in our office, and we've got 245 projects, and so every one of those has got an architect selection, a contractor selection. So I suppose we've written combined there, I don't know what, 500 RFPs or something in the last 26 years. And if you look at the number, you can divide by the number of years in business. You can kind of see we do probably about 10 projects a year, and they're not all big projects. Some are smaller projects and kind of a whole variety on it. So if we look at the projects that we've done, we did the Minnehaha County Jail. Now in that case, we started when it was they hadn't sold the bond, but it was everything was moving in that direction, and they were already through the real what call kind of the tangled part of these projects of getting everybody on the same page to do it. We did Black Hills Energy out in Rapid City, and just completed the monument project like I mentioned. Midco Aquatic Center, some South Dakota examples there. Danny Sanford, a Premier Center. Allianz Field is a soccer stadium. We also did Target Field. I guess they didn't put that on here, but that had 3 years of my life that people talk about working 24/7 and 7 days a week, and that was what I actually did. I hardly saw my wife and kids for 3 years, but I think I learned more on that project than they think. $550 million, a big project. We did like Watertown, the Prairie Lakes Wellness Center. We're also currently doing their ice arena right now. Just getting going. We're in the design phase there. And like on Target Center, we did their $100+ million renovation. So we've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of projects. We've done other things here in the state. And all my work is South Dakota. That's 100%. The only one that's an exception to it is we may have one in Fairmont because it's on the way here. And so all my work is South Dakota. And something I learned is after doing projects, and we literally all over the country, I learned that there's something about South Dakota here it looks pretty good after all. The people here are wonderful people, so that's why I'm doing it at this stage. Plus, I'm 62 years old, and at this stage of my life, I kind of want to do what I want to do, and that's why I'm where I want to be. My wife has told me, she said, you're probably the happiest you've ever been in your career because I'm doing what I want to do and doing where I want to do it. Okay, then in terms of the decisions you have, I'm going to just run through some of the things. All the reason you're feeling like it's so tangled right now is you got a lot on your plate. You're trying to decide these things, and you got to decide what are the most pressing needs. Is it the courts? Is it the sheriff's office? Is it the jail? Or some combination of that? And then what's the timeline for solutions if you don't do it? If you don't do, take the jail. If you don't do the jail, well, when will you do the jail? Or will you be building somebody else's jail? And but at the same time, then you try and size it. Any of these, you try and size it, right? And how many years are you going to expand? Plan for the expansion. I use the example of a young family. They get married and they know they want to have kids and they want to have a family. Well, they can't afford to go buy their 4-bedroom house and everything. So they start out with something that they either going to have to expand or change because they just plain can't afford it. And that's usually where it hits with this. There's that balance there. And also, how confident are you in the growth projections? You've experienced growth that's phenomenal growth. Now, how confident are you that that's going to continue? And then somehow you got to balance this out because with the budget, I don't know, I didn't track your campaigns, but some of you probably ran on the things that aren't going to increase taxes. Okay, well, how do we balance all that? How do we get through that? Because what's an acceptable level of tax increase? And what's your other debt? We can kind of look at those assumptions there of what all do you have? What are those factors? So you've got to find that balance. And then it sounds like there may be consensus to build it here in Canton, which would be great if you've got that. But I don't know that that's absolute, but I just listened to your last one of the videos and it kind of sounded that way. But then you got the short list of sites to be considered, and how much land is needed. On financing, do you do geobonds? Do you do the capital lease? Do you do the third-party lease? All pretty big decisions. What's the term of the bonds? what's the term of the lease? You got interest rates are, from listening to Tom, interest rates likely are going he thinks are going to go up. So you kind of got that pressure on the timeline. And you got, what's the role of your citizens committee, your courthouse committee? What's their role? Are they involved in the design meetings? Who of the commissioners are involved? How do you do that? And, when do you engage the broader community? Does the community know that what you pay for, what you're paying every year for housing your inmates elsewhere? And, it's kind of an education process and bringing the public in, and we learn there's ways to do it and ways not to do it. And what, when, and how do you do that? How do you communicate to the public? And how do you inform the public? So when I get into the design, who are the decision makers? Is it all 5 of you? Is it the committee? And what existing contractual commitments do you have? Citizen committee involvement with the team selection. Typically they are. Do you have local participation? We had an interesting one there with Watertown. They had 3 contractors, and they kind of quickly narrowed it down to 2. And what was interesting is both of them were competitive. They were very equal on cost, and they were both very good. They were both, it was really if I was on that side of it, we don't vote. We don't vote. We just set you guys up so you vote on it. And we'll give you the questions to ask, and we'll drill into we'll read through all the proposals and, have you ask questions if there's things that are missing and things you want to know. So we kind of do all that kind of work for you, but you're the ones that, at the end of the day, it's your money, so you're entrusted to, with the taxpayers' money, so you've got to decide, make that decision, but we can help set it up for you. And at the end of the day, what they did, they had a contract that was, that had a local partner, and the other one that didn't, they went with the one that had the local partner. And that was the reason they went with that firm. So some communities, that's a big deal. And how best do you obtain cost estimates? Because we're in a time now, as you've heard others say, with all this cost escalation, how best do we handle that? So this is a chart that we have that is where we typically come into a project, right? So this shows kind of what you're in right now. You're bumping each other. You got different opinions. Every so often, you're kind of going in the same path, and then other times you're diverging. You got different opinions. You got hired or elected for different reasons, and you're all going to argue your position, and that's fine. That's a healthy. That's democracy in action. So to get things done, we got to somehow get everybody in alignment. We've got to get alignment on it. We got to get consensus. We got to get organized. And what we see when we walk into these projects is, sometimes we see, some confusion on it. Most of the time it's misinformation, because we've learned that if we can present you facts, and if you see, and actually know the facts, so when you're asked a question, you have all the information to actually make the decision. Because that's usually what's missing. Because it's usually you're trying to make decisions on things where you don't have all the information. But you're smart people, you got elected, and then it's how do we help you do that? How do we go through and make it so you've got all that information? So that's our job. That's how we view our job. We need to position you to make good business decisions and timely decisions. Make them timely, and when you're asked a decision, for example, with an architect, we don't let an architect come in and say, do you want to do this or you want to do that, without having a price on it. So we want to know, you got to have all the information before you make these decisions. And then you're going back to where we started on this thing, what it all comes down to is, what does it do with the taxes? And you've got a lot of pressure on it, a lot of pressure to hold that down. Because it's, and also you've got, a lot of ag land. You got a lot of people that pay a lot of taxes here. And how do we find that balance, but yet still meet the needs that you have? And that's where we help out on that. That's our process on it, and we sure welcome the opportunity to do a formal proposal and to show kind of our approach to it. There's a different approach to it, and we could welcome the opportunity to show you ours. So, any questions or comments, or open up to?
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate the proposal. I think we certainly need to have command of the facts and circumstances, but we also need to be humble enough to realize we don't know what we don't know. And it sounds like your organization or a construction manager could help us understand to know what we don't know and to turn some assumptions into hard, concrete facts so we can make decisions on it, right?
Right.
So with that, I would ask the members of the commission, do you have any questions for Dick?
You made reference of 245 projects you've done in the past, approximately.
Yeah.
Yeah, what percentage of those were justice centers or courthouses or jails?
Oh, I think we could say if we kind of put the public, if you include things that are, like, for example, right now, we're working with Brookings on their police station. And so, I think if I look at overall just public sector, I think last year was somewhere around 40%. And it's kind of swaying. We went for a lot of years there, and it's evidenced by the age of buildings. There weren't a lot of courthouses and a lot of jails. A lot of these things built for a lot of years. A lot of them were built in the 80s, some 70s and 80s. So there hasn't been a lot built. That's why you, along with many other counties, how many jails have been built in South Dakota in the last years? I can count them on my fingers. Got Fulton County, you got that new one at Brookings, now Lawrence is looking at it. And these are tough decisions, so we've been involved in these projects. I don't have an exact percentage on it, but we've been involved in quite a few, kind of over the years.
So how do you involve the public? That's a big part. I mean, informing them and so on and so forth. How do you do that?
Yeah, I'll get into some of that in our proposal, and knowing that we're competing, I don't want to kind of give all our secrets away here, but I guess, I think the big picture on it is, it's, the public needs to know. They need to know the numbers. They need to know that when they look at, if you're debating between two options, they need to know, what does this cost me? That's what they're gonna look at. Is it, how much do my taxes go up? Or how will it, so getting them informed with the numbers on it. And they need to see the process. They need to see the process, so it isn't just where you're just going and going, here you go. Here's the building, here's what it costs. It's like, you gotta involve them in the process. And we applaud you for having a committee, a citizens committee. That is and also, when I first met with the committee, I wanted to know if they all got along, if they're all on the same page. And then I learned that there's some diverse opinions on it. That's exactly what you need. You need to get a committee where you get opposing views, have them represented, and then, and they gotta come together. They gotta come together and agree on these things. If they don't agree on it, if you can't get a simple committee to agree, how are you gonna get all your constituents to agree on something? So it's, we're real big on a committee. Get a committee going and have it be diverse. Don't have people that are all in one camp or the other. Get ones that think different on it. Because one of the things we look at when we're putting these projects together is, and all those questions I threw out there, every one of those is a potential stumbling block. So every single one of them. So how do we minimize those stumbling blocks? And a lot of times it is, people need to know. People don't know that you're paying 7 figures to house your inmates elsewhere, for example. And I don't know what you're paying, but it's, county your size, I can kind of do some simple math in my head. And people need to know when we talk about, I'm just talking about jails because they're a little easier to understand from a public perspective. It's not like a hotel. A hotel, if you've got 100 beds, you can, that's what you get. With jails, you got classifications. And how many classifications are you gonna have? I just recently read a story about one where they didn't have the proper classifications. They had an individual that had murdered somebody or was accused of murdering somebody, and somebody else who was in for a DWI. Well, the guy that was charged with murder, he somehow got the grab bar off the wall of the restroom in a common restroom area and took it and beat the guy to death that just had a DWI. I mean, you gotta have classifications, gotta have it for, and also different, groups that don't get along and female, male, and figuring all that out. So, and the public needs to understand. Public needs to understand some of these just hard realities that we have to deal with. So when we talk about the number of beds, it isn't like a hotel. We're just like, how many rooms do we have? So they got to have an understanding of, I use that as an example just of some of the public education that needs to happen. But at the same time, I can say this to any county, your taxpayers aren't gonna pay for everything that you want and that you need. It's not gonna happen. So then as you're trying to figure out what do we do that's the best decision that we have based on what the needs and the wants are. And one thing we do in the design process, we really work hard at defining what are the must-have needs versus the nice-to-have wants. Because, I recently built a cabin and I really wanted a 3-car garage. Well, I got the facts and I understood what it was. Well, you know what? I'm happy to have a 2-car garage. So, it's the same thing. I mean, you're all, you've got your wants and you've got your needs. And we help kind of sort that out and then also get it so the public understands. So the public understands that you're being responsible with their dollars because that's what you're hired for. That's why they elected you. And they need to show, you need to show, and not as a showpiece. You need to let them see the process of the struggle that you guys have of trying to figure out how do we make a good decision here. And and have it so it's not political. It's about these are the needs, and this is how we're struggling to figure out how we can meet those needs. And so that's kind of how we do I don't know if that answers the questions with the citizen involvement, but we think a committee and then do public open houses. We don't recommend having something where you get up on stage and present it, because it ends up to be, we've seen those where you just about have people throwing eggs and tomatoes at people, where you got someone who's real vocal against it and can kind of turn the whole crowd against it, which isn't what we need. What we need is, there's people who are going to be against it, and we understand that, and there's people who are for it, but what they need is to be educated. So we'll take, for example, take a room like this and set up some boards of the different options and have people come in and educate them on it. Because the biggest thing is voters, they aren't going to vote for something that they don't understand. They need to understand you're going to have your 20% or so that are going to, like they say, that would vote against motherhood and apple pie. I mean, they aren't going to vote for it. But you've got that ones in the middle, and most people, what they're looking for is they just want to know that what do we have to do as a county? What do we have to do here where it just doesn't make sense to not do it? And that's what we got to try and find.
Dick, you bring a, excuse me, go ahead.
I would just like to comment that I appreciate the efforts of our courthouse committee meeting that met last Tuesday night. The information that was presented, I thought was very good. Information that really every resident of Lincoln County should hear. And I commend Commissioner Aaron's and Schmidt and your efforts, along with the courthouse committee, some of them which are here today. I think that's a step in the right direction. Good information. I streamlined it, watched it. That's what our public needs to hear, so they can make a decision.
Well, I'll follow up on that and say, Dick, you talked about a viable working advisory group. We have that. Very committed citizens have devoted time and energy, willing to travel, do all the necessary groundwork to come up with some ideas. They're going to be the ones that lead this whole thing. And if you were here, you would be very confident in their ability to do that. One of the things that I was impressed with was your team and your team approach. And pardon me for using this analysis, but I had my wife at Mayo for 2 years ago for some serious things. And what impressed me was their team approach, because they had a team of physicians that addressed all the different avenues of what could be part of the situation that she was confronted with. And you have also, because you have the finance, the engineers, the project manager. So I'm assuming that when a project comes to the fore, that team engages in the whole project and comes up and gives you the best possible advice, direction, or whatever, which translates back to the organization, be it Lincoln County or be it Lawrence County or be it Brookings County or any other county that you work for. And that approach seems to be that you vet everything out pretty well. And then you also translate that back to the public. So it's an education.
kind of the key,
That's
it's an
part of the
education,
education
yes.
process, right?
I often say that if I look smart, it's probably because somebody else is making me look smart. So that's that's kind of the reality of it. Because no one person in our office is an expert at everything. After we've done a lot of these projects, I get so on the finance side. Now, I've been around it now my whole career, so I know a fair amount about it, but not compared to the guys that do it. They do it, kind of all day, every day. So that's one thing that we bring is realizing that it can't be one, having one person, especially, it's one thing on the design of the construction, and I'd almost say that gets to be the easier part. The harder part is this whole, comes down to how are you gonna pay for this thing? How are you gonna pay for it, and how do you get accurate cost estimates, not just for construction, but for all the soft costs, and how do you negotiate land and get it so you're, really being responsible for every dollar, so that's why we got the broad team.
Thank you.
Do the commissioners on the telephone have any questions or comments for Mr. Strasburg?
This is Commissioner Landy, and I'm just really glad that you're here today, Mr. Strasburg, and very good information that you're providing. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Poppins here. The question I would have at this moment would be, can you give us any suggestion as to what to prepare for a timeline in which to proceed, and how long it would take to gather the information, process the information, and try to get back to the decision makers that need to process then that information and try to move forward?
I think we'll include that in our proposal. I think, we've got one approach to it. If we have any competitors, they may have a different approach to it. So I'm not going to say too much on that. But I think one thing we do is we want to know up front, how much time can we get from the committee and how much time can we get from whoever on the commission are going to be involved in this? Because the timeline on it is usually isn't Tegra. We got a lot of people, we can make things happen. But, this isn't your full-time job. So that's what we got to do is kind of balance it. So we're, really using the time that you give us really efficiently and really make it so it's concise. And also, this isn't the kind of thing where we go off and do this and come back and go, here it is, do you like it or not? You're involved, very involved in the whole process. You're very involved because our job is to help you make decisions all along the way, not just to make kind of the ultimate decision of what, are you gonna do geo bonds, or are you gonna do a capital lease or a third party? That's ultimately the decision. Or are you gonna do nothing? That's what is the best thing. And also the thing we really encourage on that timeline too is to do it right. We see these projects, what often happens on it is these are hard decisions. And if you don't have all the decisions and you don't have a streamlined decision-making process, what happens is they can tend that they drag out. But I think if we come here, and I know this because we've done it enough to know, if we come and we present you the facts on whatever topic we're discussing, you'll make decisions. And you'll make good decisions if you've got all well-vetted information on it. So we've done from where you are right now to get to a vote, it could be as little as 75 days, and it could be 120 days. And that goes by some of those decisions that you're going to make. Legally, can we still use the same architect? He was an RP for a jail. Can we use him now for courts? And also, where's the committee at with it? Because usually to get the committee and everybody going, I mean, we run a pretty tight ship on this thing. We're going to always tell you to get an RFP. When Bill called me yesterday about doing an RFP on this, we said that's fine, because it's got to be an open, honest process through the whole thing. It's got to be very transparent, and and it takes time to do those things. It takes about 30 days to go through the process. For hiring architects, we use the same process as the state uses for contractors. So it gets posted. It's got time for questions. We run it the same way. Legally, as professional services, you don't have to, but we run it that way, and we want it to be very transparent. We have yet to have anything challenged in terms of the process that we've used, but I think it's because we use a pretty tested process, and it is a pretty well proven process that we go through, because that's I'd say early on when we first started Tegra, we learned, and so after doing it now for a lot of years, we've kind of figured out how to do it. So and the big thing is so the public knows that you're vetting this out. So you're vetting it all out, and you're doing a process. So really, if you look at kind of the big picture of what we do is we manage the process. That's what we do. We line it up so you can make good decisions along the way during that process.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Strasburg. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time this morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dick.
We'll move on to agenda item number 2, board action for request for proposal for project manager. So we'll segue into that. Mr. Golden.
And I would initially ask for an executive session on this one.
Okay, Mr. Golden's asked for an executive session. Is there a motion to move into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-3?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine,
I'll vote yes. I'm going to drop off the call though because I'm commuting and there's other people with me, so I won't be virtual.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Okay, we're in executive session now. Okay, we're out of executive session and back into regular session. We will continue on with paragraph 2 under regular business. Board action on request for proposal for project manager. Mr. Golden, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm requesting that the commission goes ahead and authorizes a request for proposal for a contract service manager, owner representative, or a project manager be issued. And then we publish as quickly as possible and receive bids.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Golden by the commission members? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chair, I would so move to keep this project going that we put RFP out for a project manager.
Is there a second on Commissioner Schmidt's motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and second to issue the RFP. Is there any discussion by the members?
Mr. Chair, I think this is a process in which we keep this as public as possible, and we entertain any and all individuals or companies out there for what they have, and it's a way to keep the public informed as this process continues.
Yeah, I think Mr. Strasburg made exceptional comments based upon significant experience in his field, and I think those comments stand on their own. Is there any other discussion on the motion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, discussion regarding 4-H leaders and potential lease.
Good morning. I have,
Chairman, I'm on the phone, just so you know.
Thank you.
You bet.
I have with me today our Lincoln County Fairgrounds Foundation President Chad Hazel. Bill had put together a potential lease agreement for the foundation and the county for the purpose of constructing the building out there. I don't know if you want to talk more about that.
Essentially, what we're asking for is a lease from the county, somewhat like what you have at the airport, for us to construct buildings and then lease the ground from the county while construction is underway, and then we turn it back to the county, terminate the lease, and then it's the county's building. And we're hoping with this, it'll help us streamline construction, be able to take advantage of people that want to donate their time or some, things like that, and move the process along a little bit. That's where we're at with that.
Chad and Wendy, thanks for being here today. Appreciate it. Where do you think things stand right now to that end?
Right now, the construction costs are coming down a little. With that being said, we're short, about $50,000 for the first building. With us being able to go out and search for builders that, you know, obviously are gonna follow planning and zoning codes, all the engineering rules and everything like that, but be able to build it maybe on a little cheaper, just because they're not gonna charge us as much, because it's for 4-H instead of it having the county name in it. So, yeah, right now, we're short about 50, but we're still hoping to be able to have something going out there this summer, so.
Good. So you're expecting, hopefully to spades in the ground by summertime?
We're hoping, yes.
Sure. When you say the first building, what is the first building you were planning on?
So the first building is a 60 by 120 by 16 high, essentially a pole barn. They'll be used as the show ring. That's where the bleachers, the fashion show, that kind of stuff will happen inside that building. Basically the center of where everything happens at the fairgrounds. We're planning on putting up the barns where the cattle and the pigs and everything are stalled in a progression here down the road.
That'll be kind of surrounding this central facility, right?
Yep,
From what
yep,
drawings dreams you've had,
right.
whatever they may be, but dreams do become reality sometimes.
You know, Chad, does the fairgrounds have any drawings or renderings that maybe we could shop around or show the public, or kind of what your vision
believe
looks
we
like
do.
out there?
We do have some.
Okay.
Not here.
Chad,
Not here, and
Not today, of course, yeah.
ones that we've been able to have someone do on a limited budget, so.
Sure. Okay. Does John have a copy of those? Okay, so we could work with him to get that.
Chad, is this the area where the dirt is moved currently, right
Yes.
now?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. So,
You look like a typical contractor, scraping the dirt off and all this other kind of stuff.
yes, it did out there.
Well, so do we need to put, well, first of all, are there any other questions or comments from the members of the commission for Chad or Wendy on this issue? Okay, well, hearing none, what would the commission like to do with regard to the proposal outlined by Mr. Hazel there?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we would allow or enter into an agreement with the builder or the group that we would lease them the ground based on the same format that we do with our airport. And that they would have that for X number of years. They could determine that. And upon termination of those times, it would become the property of Lincoln County. And I think that's what you're asking for.
Yeah,
Essentially.
and would you like Mr. Golden to draft up the lease for us
Would he-
to
would he-
review?
We don't have a lease yet, do we, Bill?
We have worked on a limited rough draft. I can finalize it here real quick and get it to you at the next meeting
Very well.
for your review.
Mr. Chair, yeah.
So, as part of your motion, you'd like that presented at the next meeting?
At the 25th, I think, is our next meeting. Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, so we've got a motion to have a lease presented to us to that effect. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, what exactly is the motion again?
I'll second it, Commissioner.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Commissioner Gibbon, to answer your question, I think what I'm understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Schmidt, is that the motion is to have the state's attorney draft a lease agreement in the manner outlined by Commissioner Schmidt for us to review and then vote on at the next meeting.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other further discussion on that motion? If not, yes,
I do have a question.
yes.
Commissioner Schmidt, you said that it should be based on airport leases. Is that the farm
Well, it's the same
lease, or-
concept. I mean, it's the same concept that we
thank
would
you.
lease it for X, and it becomes, after a certain number of years, reverts back to the county and for their ownership. But that's on the same principle.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or clarification needed? Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes,
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Okay, so at the next board meeting, we'll have a lease to review. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate your time today. And we will move right into the 4-H annual report with Wendy.
All right. Okay, so this is just our annual report for 4-H for 2021. We had 10 clubs, 1 in Beersford, 3 in Canton, 1 Harrisburg, 4 in Lenox, and 1 in T. Our active member enrollment was 242 with 48 registered volunteer adults. For our numbers on project areas and youth and action events, I put the last 5 years so you can get an idea of how the numbers were compared to previous years. As you know, in 2020, things were upset and we did virtual for a lot of things, or exhibit numbers were limited. So for comparison's sake, I would have you look more at 2019, and we were close to returning to 2019 numbers, or exceeded it in the case of Fashion Review on this slide. 4-H also offers judging and Skill-A-Thon opportunities for members. As you'll see, dairy, cattle, and horse have had no participants in our county in the last 5 years until 2021. And then we had some interest from those kids, and they all did very well at their state contests for horse and dairy, where our junior team won the dairy contest and our junior team was third for horse. So we've had a little more interest in there and continue to advertise that for 4-H members. Looking at our county livestock exhibit numbers, compared to 2019, livestock numbers at the county level were up in beef, dairy, cattle, poultry, rabbit, and companion animal. You can see where our other numbers were a little bit down. Meat, goat was close to normal. Sheep was above last year, but still not to 2019 levels yet. So in 2021, we had 4 members participate in dog practices with Minnehaha County. The reason we have been co-oping with them is because we do not have a dog project leader, and they do. So this fall, we started a special interest club between the 2 counties, and we host practices in our facility in Lenox. Minnehaha does not have a place they could do it during colder months. So we have a place, but they have the coaches. So we have gone together to offer dog for the 2 counties together. In rodeo, 4-H rodeo has been a project member for a long time, but rodeo appears to be becoming more popular in our area with 17 members last year competing at the regional rodeos around the state. We have a handful of 4-H'ers from Iowa for the rodeo project because Iowa 4-H does not offer 4-H rodeo. Okay, in regards to static exhibits, you can see from this year, we had 661 exhibits, which was down compared to 943 in 2019. However, speaking with other counties, this sounded normal for this year. I don't know if it's just people trying to get back into the flow of things after COVID. So we'll see how it goes again this year. But in this picture, you can see on here, we arranged our exhibits differently this year in our new space. The lighting in the building was considerably better than what we have had before, and the layout worked out nice for people to go and find exhibits. At the state fair, we were down more than 50% because the state limited everyone to 4 static exhibits per person with a total of 12 exhibits at the state fair. So this means some people who would normally have brought static exhibits to the state fair did not because they were exhibiting livestock or participating in youth in action events to meet their 12 total. Livestock at state fair, we had 108. Again, members were limited to 4 animals per species and up to 12 total projects. So last year, we only had 80 exhibits. Because of COVID, they limited to 2 animals per species. 2019, people could bring 10 total animals per person. The reason they went to 4 animals per species this year was because of limited space at the state fairgrounds, because that open class beef barn that burned down, they have not been able to replace that yet. And that doesn't sound like that'll be replaced and open until 2023. We had some notable livestock achievements in our county, from beef and companion animal, dog, poultry, rabbit. We had the overall champion rabbit in the state for 4-H, which was pretty exciting for this young lady at the bottom of the page here. We also did well in our youth in action events. Lincoln County had the most contestants in fashion review at the state fair, and 4 of our members placed in the top 5 in their age division. And if you'll know, 3 of those are cousins. Shooting sports, we had 42 participants in 2021. We have 55 currently enrolled for 2022. We had 8 volunteer leaders last year, and we are at 10 this year. Shooting sports practice began just this Sunday with members, so they are shooting BB gun, air rifle, air pistol, and archery. Junior leaders, we restarted that in September. So this group, we kind of had halted because of changes in the office and COVID, so we just got them restarted again. It's open to 4-Hers 14 to 18 years old. This group picture is with the Cottonwood County, Minnesota 4-H ambassadors at the East River Foster Parent Network, where we did a community service project December 30th. The Cottonwood County 4-H is actually run by my sister, so we teamed up for that. And then we're going to get together with Minnehaha County junior leaders on this Sunday at our building to tie blankets. We held a recognition event in November. You can see our friends at 4-H are John Hanson and Tom Henke from the county. 4-H Family of the Year was Andrew and Ann Bowden from Beersford, and Meritorious Service Award was to Brock Hartman, who has been a longtime shooting sports coach. Lincoln County Fairgrounds Foundation, you just heard from Chad. Our officers remain the same. We added Brady Duxbury, the Lennox FFA advisor, and Trent Thompson, a parent, to our group as well. We had our 2nd annual Raise the Roof fundraiser in March of last year. We're planning our 3rd annual Raise the Roof again for March. We've received at least $18,200 in grant money toward the project. We had our 2nd annual Craft and Vendor Fair in November. We're thankful to everyone who has given money to the foundation to help move the building project forward. And as of today, the foundation has raised more than $170,000. But keep in mind, so that there are things earmarked in that amount of money that can't go towards the specific building. And here's just some fun facts about 4-H from the state office. 4 times more likely to be involved in community service, like these 2 pictures here. The top one is Dakota Lassies and Rangers made blankets for Project Warm Up in Sioux Falls, and the bottom picture is Christmas ornaments that Trophy Trotters made for the Lennox Nursing Home. This is kind of small, but this is our grounds usage for January through December. I updated you quarterly on these, so except for last quarter. So October we had club meetings. Lennox Boosters had their event that had gotten moved from August. CFEL had their brunch, and we started dog practice that month. November we had recognition event. CFEL had a meeting. We had the vendor and craft fair, and then we had the East River Rabbit Breeders Show. In December, we had club meetings. Lennox Sunstrom used our facility to sort their FFA fruit because their Shop was still not fixed from the tornado, so they used our building for that. And then we had dog practice and we had a winter project day. And since I like Betty White, here's my quote, but are there any questions?
That is a fantastic report, Wendy.
Thank you.
It's certainly, I think it shows, especially with the numbers and the metrics you have in there, it looks like we're bouncing back from some pretty significant public health issues that have been going on with COVID. And it looks like we're trending in the right direction with regard to participation of our kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Is there any other questions or comments for Wendy?
The fun facts, that's good stats. Good information there about those that are involved and success rate afterwards in 4-H.
Yep.
And did you pick up some additional individuals with your targets? I noticed it was advertised in the paper by January 1st. They were supposed to
Yep,
enroll
and-
online.
Yep,
Did you-
we've
did you-
had a lot, I don't know what the numbers are, but we did have quite a few new people interested in shooting sports, and I know we had some of those people sign up. So I can't say which ones are new and which ones are old people, but
Do you participate in that shooting sport, Wendy?
I don't know anything about the shooting sports part, except I can tell you what they're doing right now and how the building gets set
How
up.
about
So-
archery? Are they still pretty good too?
Yep. So they'll practice every Sunday now from this past Sunday through the middle of April. So they'll be using that west side of the building through April, so.
Are there any number of requests to rent the building for activities, weddings, et cetera, things like that?
I
Do you
know
get-
we have a graduation in May, already booked the building for this year and next year. We've had an interest, I'm not sure where we're at from somebody, I think it was for a family gathering, but I don't know when that was planned for, because I've had them visiting with Jessica. Otherwise, I know that Rabbit Show has theirs already booked again for November. We'll have another Raise the Roof event in March, but
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Good.
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Okay, Harold Timmerman, approve and authorize execution of the signature sheet for the first quarter of the local emergency management performance grant.
Good morning, everyone. This is just the normal quarterly report that I have to file with our state office to get our LE MPG grant money back to the county. Requires signature by the chairman, vice chairman, or the vice chairman and the auditor. Any questions you might have about any of that?
Is there a motion to that effect? Or does anybody have questions first?
Approximately how much money is that?
On an annual basis, I'm guessing it's about $48,000.
I would so move to have the, our chair, our pending chair, sign that agreement.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you.
All right, Travis, approval to advertise for the 2022 annual supply bids for the highway department. I assume you're taking over for Terry this morning?
Do what I can.
I bet.
Big shoes to fill, but I'll see what I can do.
No
Yep,
problem.
so we're going to, want to go to bid for our 22 annual supply bids, cutting edges, weed chemicals, all the normal stuff, year to year.
Does anybody have a motion to that effect?
Any questions?
I don't. Also move, Mr. Chairman, if you're looking for a motion.
I'll second.
Got a motion and second. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve and advertise? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Okay. Agenda item number 7,
Twenty
Travis.
twenty-two spring load limits, for Lincoln County roads. Just looking for approval from the board to authorize the chair to sign this request.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Got a motion and second to approve the spring load limits for our roads. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call a roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Motor Carrier Services request for Lincoln County roads.
Yep, so this is the one to approve and authorize the chair to sign the request to the motor carrier services to enforce our spring load limits.
Those are the ones that pull you over, put scales underneath, and
And they're not a cheap fine.
Also move, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Got a motion and second. Send a request letter to Motor Carrier Services for our Lincoln County roads for the 2022 spring load limits. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call a roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Okay, it looks like we've got a request from your department there, Travis, to permission to purchase a trailer approved in the 2022 budget. What can you tell us about it?
Well, with the ease of everything else, I think we can slide this one too through, right? I mean, everything else has been going pretty fast. We had budgeted for 2020, got approved in the 22 budget for a new trailer. And I believe our budget line was at 14.5 for this trailer, but due to rising costs of materials and everything else, the quotes that I have here are considerably more. The lowest bid that we did get from Luden's Trailers in the amount of $20,750 for a trailer. Next one was from Prairie Wind Trailers for $24,000. I had reached out to Butler Cat also on one of their trailers, and we were in the ballpark of $25,000 to $30,000 on a trailer. A lot of this stuff too that we're finding with trying to purchase equipment is quotes are only good for a certain amount of time, and that's if they can even guarantee the price of when the trailer's built or any other equipment as well.
Travis, are these identical trailers, the one first for 14.5 and now for 20,750? Are they perfectly identical or
Yes.
same weight carrying and everything?
Yep, specs are identical on it. The only thing we have here, falling into that group of hopefully a quote will last for 30 days or last till April. The one we have here for 20,750 wouldn't get built or be here until April. Currently, right now, Luden's has a trailer that is set for delivery in February.
Yeah.
And that price on that trailer is $20,950. Only difference on that trailer, it is 2 foot longer. So for $200 more, we could lock into a price in February and not have to worry about any other rising costs that we may incur out till April.
And your primary usage for the trailer is what again?
Hauling skid loaders, culverts, hauling heavy stuff.
So we'd have a choice of taking ones that Luden's currently has for $20,950.
Correct.
Which is deliverable now
In February.
in February,
Yep.
versus the one that if we did the 20,750, isn't even, they haven't lit the torches on that yet, right?
Right, wouldn't be till April.
Okay.
Is there a motion? Do any of the members have any further questions for Travis?
I don't. You, Jim?
If there's no further questions, I'd ask for a motion on the agenda item.
Well, I'll move that, taking what Travis had told us today, and being able to have the usage now of taking the trailer bid from Luden's for $20,950.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I've got a motion and second to purchase a trailer from Luden's for $20,950. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes, motion passes. Lincoln County just bought itself a new
trailer.
All right, agenda item number 10. Toby, you help us out with this.
This is a first reading for an ordinance of Lincoln County, South Dakota, rezoning the property legally described as west half of northeast quarter, except south 247.5 feet and west 24.75 feet thereof. Section 22, Township 100 North, Right 49 West, from the A1 Agricultural District to the RR Rural Residential District, and amending the official zoning map of the area of joint jurisdiction. Location is parcel ID 100-4922-1020.
Good morning, Toby Brown representing County Planning. The applicant and owner for this item is Tom Winker. Location, as you can see on the map, is approximately 2 miles southeast as the crow flies from the city of Sioux Falls. The parcel size is 71.14 acres, and the purpose for this application is for a residential subdivision of 25 lots. The applicant did submit a preliminary plan with the application. The preliminary plan identifies the lot and block layout for the 25 lots. Access is achieved off of 270th Street, which is an unpaved Springdale Township road. Water will be provided by Lincoln County Rural Water, and the individual septic systems or on-site wastewater systems will be the means for sanitary sewer on the property. Staff did, in their initial staff report findings, identify that the application was not consistent with the comprehensive plan. Primarily, the future land use map identified this area as future rural area. This is outside of the growth area of the city of Sioux Falls, as well as the goals and policies identify that the property should be continued to be utilized as a rural or an agricultural property. The property does have one building eligibility remaining on the property that could be utilized. The preliminary plan is, as long as with staff's findings, both planning commissions met last month, and both planning commissions unanimously recommended denial of the application, as well as both bodies unanimously denied the preliminary plan application. You have set the second reading public hearing jointly with the city of Sioux Falls for your meeting on the 25th. That meeting will be at 7 o'clock in this room. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Toby, what was the rationale for both commissions, or planning commissions, to deny?
Again, I think the staff analysis identified that this property is outside of the growth areas of Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls has tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So this is, beyond a 40, 50-year development scheme. And so the other aspect is that, I'll go back to this slide here and take a look at this one. As you can see, there is some rural residential to the south, but there is no surrounding this. So again, from a staff perspective, this would be a spot zone for a rural residential at this time. As well as I think the neighbors that came to the public hearing probably adequately summarized it better than staff when they said, Sioux Falls can grow out, but do we want them to jump out here and to be part of this? This is quite a rural area here. There is an existing feedlot or CAFO to the south of this property here. There's an existing residential or one single-family residential dwelling here. So again, this area is not identified as a future residential area in the comprehensive plan.
How close is this to Good Earth?
Less than a half a mile, a little over, yeah.
So again, you've scheduled a second reading public hearing with City of Sioux Falls for your meeting on the 25th at 7 o'clock.
Commissioner Schmidt, that's Randy Olson's property to the south of this property.
Oh, okay.
He has a cattle farm out there, and his cattle farm drains into Spring Creek. And he was at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. He testified against it. You asked what the rationale was. I watched the meeting. It was mostly drainage issues and then some crowding issues.
Toby, the southern part of that property, isn't there some wetlands as well? Did I read that?
There's a wetland on the north part of the property.
In the northern part?
Small,
Okay, I knew
small,
there was.
yeah, small
okay.
wetland, yeah.
Commissioner Joel, it drains into Spring Creek. Has he done no hampering or anything? No barriers or no,
Well, Mr. Olson's property lies on a pretty steep piece of property. That's why his land drains into Spring Creek, because he's on the abutment.
okay.
This piece of land, we'll have to get more details during the actual public hearing.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay. Need to go visit.
I'm just reiterating what I heard in the planning and zoning meeting to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Okay, number 11, transfer surplus Ford Explorer to the Office of the Auditor.
On January 4th, you surplus the Ford Explorer from the sheriff's office, and the auditor treasurer register of deeds could use this vehicle for their out-of-county travel that they have to do. So I was hoping that we would transfer it just to the auditor's office, and then we would maintain it.
You've heard the request.
I'll propose a motion to approve to get us started.
I'll second.
Got a motion and approved to transfer the surplus Ford Explorer to the Office of the Auditor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Thank you, Sherry. Agenda item number 12, approval of the 2022 employee holiday schedule. Sean, could you,
I will call.
alert Julia that her presence is needed?
I have a question, Sherry. This Ford Explorer now, is this the one that has been used by the police department, and does that have some extra horsepower and some speed things?
They put a governor on it for me.
Oh.
Do you want to
Safe at about 30.
Okay.
Commissioner Schmidt, do you want to exercise your oversight duties and take it for a ride?
If I could be by myself, but I don't know if I want to go with the auditor.
Whoa, 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 what are you, my record is.
Oh, have some fun.
Well, here's what we can do. While we're waiting for Julia, it appears that agenda item 13, we'll move on to that. Clarification of cost of living increase for the command staff, and that is also her issue.
She is on her way.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, we're going to move on to 14
Yeah,
because
let's
I
do
know
14.
Jeff is here.
Yeah.
Number 14, closing conference with legislative audit for the audit ending 2020. Jeff Schaefer is our guest today.
Good morning, everyone.
morning.
Again, my name is Jeff Schaefer with Department of Legislative Audit. We've finished the fiscal and compliance audit for year 2020 for Lincoln County. The report's final and it's ready to be released. We have provided to you a management letter that outlines anything that we might discuss with the board, governing board. And if you look at the second page of that, you'll notice that under the items of any deficiencies noted that there are none, that we have nothing to bring to your attention that we thought was important enough to bring to the governing board. So That's kind of what we have. And if you have any questions concerning the audit, I'd sure be happy to answer them. But other than that, pretty short and sweet.
Well, thank you, Jeff. It sounds like Lincoln County's audit control process gets a clean bill of health this year.
It does.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll go back to agenda item number 12, approval of 2022 employee holiday schedule.
Good morning. My apologies for the tardiness. I had someone in my office. Over the last year, the commission expressed some interest on setting the holiday schedule ahead of time for employees for planning purposes, to plan for them and their families. So I just wanted to have a brief discussion. It seems as though, Carter, would you mind placing this calendar on the screen? It seems as though the only real question that I have for you for the upcoming year would be what you would like to do for or around the Easter holiday. In the past, the commission has been supportive of giving some time off on the 15th, a half day or potentially a full day some years. So I think based on how everything lands, that's the only question that I have for you.
Julia, can we take a step back for a minute before we dive into any one particular holiday? Are we adopting or have you proposed the same schedule that the state offices use?
No, in the past, that was something the commission was supportive of, just strictly following what the state does. And then if I remember correctly, a couple years ago, the commission decided that you wanted to follow your own schedule just for other purposes. You wanted to make your own schedule. And so we changed the handbook accordingly to say, you commissioners can do as you please. You will take that into consideration, what the state does. However, we won't follow it date by date.
Sure. I do think we owe it to our employees and the public to come out with, to spend some time this morning on a discussion, number one, and number two, to come out with this in advance. So thank you for being here this morning. I do think we need to take the time to do the proper planning this morning to figure this out.
Sure.
So if you could just walk us through what the days off are going to be, just start at the top of the calendar.
Okay,
and walk
sure, of
us
course.
through it.
So currently in policy, what we have here are 11 paid holidays that the commission has previously approved, and these have been in the handbook for the last couple years. The commission has been supportive of deeming these as holidays for the employees. In addition to that, the commission's been supportive of giving additional time off. For one, around the Easter holiday, and then also around the Christmas holiday. But how the dates fall around Christmas this year in 2022, I don't know if that's something you wanted to consider, as it falls on a Sunday and we have the Monday off. And so going back to this schedule here.
Do we normally, and I'm asking because I don't recall.
Yeah.
Because I'm mixing our calendar with the state's
Sure.
calendar. And the reason I follow the state's calendar is because of the courtroom closure issue. Do we observe weekend holidays on a Friday or on a Monday?
So if the holiday falls on a Saturday, we observe it on that Friday. If it's on Sunday, then we observe it on Monday.
After the fact?
Correct.
Okay,
Typically, yeah.
okay. What's the request with regard to Easter now?
Well, I don't know that there is a request per se. I'm just looking for some direction from the commission on what you'd like to do. Historically, the commission has been supportive of giving a half day or a full day on Easter Friday because there's mass and things some people like to participate in.
That's up to you.
Has it been
at full day, or have we always looked at Good Friday at about a noon dismissal?
Yeah, I think the last couple years have been noon.
I think we talked about that as being, and then you're saying since it's on, Easter is on a Sunday, Easter Monday would be closed.
That's up to you. We don't currently have Easter in our handbook, so right as it stands now, we don't have Easter Monday off. But I bring this to your attention because historically you've been supportive of giving that half day on Friday, that Good Friday.
Yeah, I think the exception to the rule, to the Saturday, Friday versus
Yeah.
Sunday, Monday rule here is Good Friday, right?
Yeah, because we don't observe Easter.
So Good Friday could be a full day, and Easter Monday would be a regular workday.
That's up to you, yeah.
Well, I was looking at that, if you were to, Easter is a holiday. We don't recognize that as a holiday?
No.
I don't believe so.
Just Monday, so, interesting.
I see June 20th is circled in yellow up there. What's the significance of that?
Yeah, so my next point of conversation would be Juneteenth has been recognized now as a federal holiday. And it's my understanding that other like entities are now deeming that as a holiday for employees. So I'm seeing if that would be something of interest to the commission. And then the holiday is actually on the 19th. And so if you follow the same practice, it would be giving the 20th off if you'd like.
You said it's a national and state holiday currently now, or just?
Correct, yep, a federal holiday. Well, the state of South Dakota does give that date off, yes. Is the bill, it hasn't been approved yet, but they gave it last year off, correct?
I believe that was an
Yeah.
executive order, yeah.
Okay, yep. So I stand corrected, however, they did get it off last year.
Can you shove it up so we can see October, November, December? Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So the two questions I guess I have are, would you like to give some additional time off on the 15th like you've previously done? And the second question would be, how do you want to handle Juneteenth, which is the 20th, or which would be celebrated on the 20th if you would like?
Well, let's take Easter first and say that in the past, we've given that Friday at noon a closure, so people could attend their church or mass or services that they would so choose. And that the 20th, we set last year, we took that off, correct?
What date?
And the 20th, June 20th?
No.
We did not.
No. The
Yeah.
state did.
The state did,
It's a
yep.
federal holiday.
We had no discussion over that last year.
So what's the feeling of the commission on the 20th? I mean, do we know how many other counties have taken that off? We didn't have any idea, do we? Are we the lone wolf, or are we in the majority, or what? We don't know.
Typically the state, are you talking about April, the Good Friday?
Yeah,
Typically the state does, I know.
yeah, at noon or the whole day.
I can't remember, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'd still favor at noon.
I know what our county has done, and it's typical to have a half day.
And that would be a paid holiday then as well, if we agreed to that.
Yeah, that'd be a full day. But it's a half a day, they take off. And some people have closed at 2, some people, I mean, businesses have different dates, but, you know, when you're dealing with the public, maybe closing at noon, or 1 o'clock, if you want to accommodate the public.
Are you talking
I'm
Good
talking
Friday
Easter.
or?
I'm talking on the 15th of Easter.
Well, I can support half-day on Good Friday.
I can too.
Yeah. And I'll just leave that one. But the 20th is in question.
So it sounds, if I'm understanding right, you want to do a half day on April 15th. Okay? Great, and now the 20th.
Yeah, I just don't have enough information about June 20th. I mean,
don't.
I've pulled up the office closures here for the state of South Dakota, and it looks like Juneteenth is recognized. I mean, I know what the holiday is. I understand the significance of it from that point of view. It's newer to South Dakota. We're obviously a northern state that came into the Union a little bit later. And it appears from looking at the calendar date here that Monday is off for the entire state of South Dakota, government offices for Juneteenth. That your understanding too?
Minnehaha County adopted it as well.
Sherry, when the state is shut down, how much business can the county do? Excluding what the treasurer's office does, or register of deeds, for example. I mean, if you got to conduct business for license and all the rest of that, it's not available, or?
The auditor's office isn't based on the state, so it doesn't affect us, but I think it does affect the treasurer.
Treasurer?
I wouldn't be able to speak on it, but yeah. And I don't know what the registered deed does with the state, but yeah, if they're closed, there's certain programs they can't get into.
Okay.
Well, you know, Commissioner Schmidt, I've always taken the approach that I think we should just mirror the state of South Dakota. That way it's predictable for citizens as well as employees, family members, whatnot. We've already deviated from that for Easter because I think in this county, there's a strong tradition of doing that. So that's kind of the, you know, how we do things down here approach, so to speak.
Well, Commissioner, I can support you on that because I think that it warrants probably that kind of respect in some ways. But if the state of South Dakota has deemed it that way, to me, I like to follow the state as you do. I think it's a consistent policy for us and for the citizens to be able to recognize too.
Gentlemen, if I may, I guess I am going to be in a disagreement on that facet, and forgive me for my voice, but the state in the past, unfortunately, has not declared what days they're going to be closed, and then too many times throughout the year we've had to discuss if we're going to mirror after the state has, on a short notice, declared a day they're going to claim as a holiday. I like to stick with what we have on the schedule, and there are departments that can function without the state. I would just as soon stay open. Thank you.
Is that a motion, Commissioner Poppins?
Yeah, I would offer that motion. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. You've heard Commissioner Poppins's motion. I think if I understand it correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner, you would support the half-day closure for Easter, but stay open on the 20th, correct?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay. Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adopt the holiday closure schedule for the county. And the deviations that are briefed here is we will close at noon on the 15th of April in observance of Good Friday, but we'll stay open for the 20th, which is recognized as Juneteenth. Does everybody understand the motion? Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes?
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
No.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes.
And just one clarifying question is, would you like me to put that in the handbook? So it's ongoing because that's typically been our practice, or would you like me to bring it before you every year?
Repeat that?
Would you like me to put the half-day for Good Friday in the handbook? So that we do that every year going forward? Or would you prefer that I just bring that this item, I bring it forward every year?
I think we'll have that conversation at this time next year, Julia.
Okay, bring it forward. Gotcha, thank you.
And
Okay.
then there's another agenda item here, and this is the last one. Clarification of cost of living increase for command staff.
Yes, last year you were supportive of giving the same increase to the command staff as you do those in the union. So I'm just looking for some clarification as if you wanted to make that exception for those individuals this year, or what you would like to do.
What's the current practice?
Well, typically, because they're not part of the union, they would get a 2.5% increase, like general population or general staff. But last year you were supportive and wanted to make an exception to that, to give the command staff a 3.25% increase to mirror what the union had. So I'm wondering how you want to handle that this year.
So if there's a 2.5, so what is the fiscal ramification of 2.5 versus 3.25?
Oh, including SDRS and taxes, we're looking at $3,000 or $4,000. It affects 4 people in the sheriff's office.
Is that the only office for the sheriff's office, Julia? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, yep.
They're talking about what, 2.5 or 3.5?
Well, it's a difference of 0.75.
Okay,
4 individuals.
Can I interject a little?
please.
The reason this is being brought forward is when the pay raises came out, the command staff noticed that they weren't on there. When they negotiated the union contract, we had agreed at that time that the command staff would mirror the union to avoid compression. So our sergeants don't catch our lieutenants. So this is it was budgeted for, and I thought it was an automatic because of what we discussed last year. I quickly learned that it's not automatic. So, but it was to avoid compression. I did budget for it, and it's minimal expense to the county to keep that, to avoid that compression.
Yeah, I'm remembering the conversation from last year now. I think it primarily had to do like what the sheriff is saying, to keep the leadership from compressing with those that they supervise. I recall that.
Those of you on the commission on September 29th, 2020, any other thoughts that you can remember of why or the decision was made at that time?
Well, I think the issue was, for example, you could be on the command staff and a lieutenant could be supervising a sergeant. And if you run the numbers out statistically, the sergeant could eclipse the lieutenant over a number of certain years if you don't keep up with the cost of living increase. So for example, you could have a situation where those that you supervise are making more money than you are. Now, just that in and of itself is not the issue. I mean, that happens all over state government. I mean, the governor makes less money than many other people in state government. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue comes in when you're talking about retention and recruiting of law enforcement officers and certain ranks and grades like that is where it tends to become an issue then.
I think that's well spoken, Mr. Chair, and I think that in this environment today, with employment being at, trying to find adequate number of employees and continually facing raises far beyond anybody ever thought we'd getting, I would move that we do give our command that necessary, what is it, Julia, 3.5 as we're talking about?
3.25.
3.25.
Yep.
That would be my motion.
We have a motion to provide the command staff in the sheriff's office with a 3.25% cost of living increase. Is there a second?
I guess I'll second it for some more discussion if there is any.
We have a motion and a second. I mean, from my point of view, I think I'll stand on the comments I just made. I mean, I wouldn't offer it for the reasons that Commissioner Schmidt gave. I'm going to want to offer it for the reasons that, I just talked about with regard to recruiting and retention and making sure you don't have sergeants eclipsing lieutenants. Because I think you get into some, I think you especially get into some recruiting issues when you get into that. I don't want to get into a pay raise arms war with every county around there. Because if the rationale is just, well, that's what the people next to us are doing, we should do it, then we will spiral into some kind of public entity salary war and competition. And that's just not how you budget in the public sector, unfortunately. But I am going to support it for my own reasons.
And you said there was a difference about $3,000, is that right? Or,
Roughly $3,000 to $4,000, yep.
okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none.
I would
clerk-
hope that,
Yep. Go ahead,
if I
Commissioner.
can, I will support this motion, but in light of what Commissioner Schmidt spoke of at the times, I think we're doing a disservice to our rest of our employees and should revisit what raises we did give them, because this is not just a sole issue for that department, but it's an issue for the whole county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions or discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes,
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. I don't see Bill here. I think we've taken care of our executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Do you want me to grab him?
Yes, please. Bill, is there any further need for executive session? Okay, thank you. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn at this time.
also moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes. Thank you. We're adjourned.